So thank you, everyone. We appreciate you all joining us for what is one of our flagship events out of AFCEA Central Maryland Emerging Leaders. It's our hosted annual Spring Mentorship Night. This event has become so popular, we've actually increased it to a few times a year. And this is actually an open forum of government, military, and industry leaders sharing their career insights to aspiring emerging leaders, not from YAC professionals. So this is a really engaging senior executive leadership Q&A panel and discussion moderated by this year, Mr. Jonathan Merkel over at NYSIS. And we're really looking forward to hearing you moderate this evening. Jonathan, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany. Hello, everybody. As Tiffany said, my name is Jonathan Merkel. I'm the BD lead at NYSIS Technologies Corporation and the secretary for the AFCEA Emerging Leaders Executive Board. We have an excellent panel of speakers this evening, and they bring a great diversity of backgrounds and their current occupations. Angie Lienert is the founder, president, and CEO of Intelligenesis, LLC. She is a veteran of the United States Air Force and is a member of the Early College Program Advisory Board, which helps Howard County public school students network with professionals. Shana Cosgrove is the founder and CEO of Nyla Technology Solutions Incorporated, a woman-owned 8A and hub-zone small business focused on providing full-stack software engineering and data science services to the DoD and intelligence community. Ms. Cosgrove is also the creator and host of Outspoken, a podcast about the topics and intersections of tech, money, business, and passion. Robert Harrison is the Director of Business Development at Innovex Information Systems. He is also a former member of the AFCEA Emerging Leaders Executive Board. And finally, Major General Garrett Yee is the Assistant to the Director of DISA. Prior to this, he served as the Military Deputy and Senior Information Security Officer in the Office of the Chief Information Officer, CIO G6 at Army Headquarters in the Pentagon. He is also a veteran of Operation Inherent Resolve, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Operation Iraqi Freedom. Thank you all so much for being here this evening. And if you in the audience have questions for any of these speakers, please enter them into the chat and we'll cover those closer to the end of the event. And now let's jump into some general questions. Angie Lienert, how did you get started in our industry? Is this where you thought you'd end up?
Well, thanks first of all for allowing me to be part of this panel. This would be a lot more fun in person, but we'll definitely try to make it as fun and interactive as possible being virtual. So to answer your question, I started in the Air Force. I was an Arabic linguist. I did that for 6 years, and that's what actually brought me to the intelligence community and to understanding and learning the mission. Is this where I thought I would end up? No. I joined the military. I'm from Kentucky. I joined the military to get out of Kentucky. I just wanted to end up out of Kentucky. So absolutely not.
Apologies to all our Kentuckian viewers.
I'm from there, so I can say that, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But what was the transition like from Air Force to founder and CEO of Intelligenesis?
Well, there were a lot of steps in between. So first it was from military, and then I transitioned to a defense contractor. So when I separated from the Air Force, it was 1999, and Arabic linguists, it was pre 9/11, so they weren't really hiring us to be linguists. So we were getting hired for receptionists or other kind of office jobs. And I had gone to school for way too long to start over. So I actually went to job fairs and found out that everybody was hiring web developers. And I figured since that was another language, I could pick that up. And so that's what I do. That's what I did. I became a web developer and did that to transition as a contractor, and knew that that's not ultimately where I wanted to go. I wanted to go into management, project management, software development type things. So I eventually kind of went down that path until it reached the point where I no longer was really with my team or the mission because of the promotions that I had, and I missed that. And I thought the only way to really be able to do all the things I wanted to do was to start my own business. And so I did.
Excellent. All right, well, let's move on. Ms. Cosgrove, the same question. How did you get started in our industry? And is this where you thought you'd end up as founder and CEO of your own company.
I majored in computer science at the University of Virginia. And since it is near Northern Virginia, it tends to recruit pretty heavily for the federal government space. And I interviewed at several jobs and took the one that I thought was the coolest, which was working on a central control panel for the SH-60 helicopter for NavAir. I just thought it was a really cool job out of all the different things we got offered when we came down. And I loved it. I briefly left to try commercial work, and I was like assigned to do a horoscope app, and I thought it was so stupid. And I came back to work on PKI. I ended up in the Intel community because I got my master's in systems engineering, and my professor of software engineering recruited me to the Aerospace Corporation. I didn't really fully understand or appreciate what I was getting into with joining the Aerospace Corporation or working at the NRO, but I liked all the different opportunities that they had. I ended up not liking the NRO because it's filled with aerospace engineers who don't understand software to save their life. So they're like, you know, they're focused on building and launching satellites successfully, and they don't understand how fast you need to develop software. So it was a real mismatch, and I had to get the heck out of there. I ended up getting hired into a very teeny tiny company up at NSA. And I think that helped me have no fear to start my own business. It was just, for a long time, I had worked for small businesses, and I had the arrogance to think, if he can do it, I can do it. And I say he because I had only worked for male-owned businesses. The Aerospace Corporation actually did have a woman in charge at the time, and I've had bosses of all different stripes, but all the small businesses that I had worked for, I just really thought, I need to be in charge. Like, I don't know what's happening here. I don't know why I'm not running the show. And so the final thread was, I just got to do this myself. I was tired of waiting for someone to determine that they should promote me or pay me or give me an opportunity in the way that they thought was best. And I had the belief and arrogance that I could do it. So here I am, loving life, working at the heart of computing, you know, with all my fellow math nerds and computer science people working on big software systems for the US government defense, and I love it.
That's awesome. All right, moving on to Rob Harrison. Rob, how did you get started in our industry, and is this where you thought you'd end up?
Not at all, no. So I graduated from University of Maryland, College Park. I actually wanted to be a lobbyist, believe it or not. So I was writing policy on the Hill for about six to 9 months or so, and realized, you know what, I really didn't want to sell my soul. It wasn't really for me. So I decided to essentially start over. Ended up getting a job working for a staffing firm called Tech USA. Started out as a recruiter, kind of moved into more of the account management, you know, getting our own, growing our own book of business. We landed, one of the bigger contracts out at the time. It was the CC fit up work, building out the data centers for, Georgia, then Texas, then Utah. So I started to meet a lot of, companies within the NSA MPO space. From there, interacted with somebody who a lot of people might know, but Donna Levin, and she actually referred me over to Innovex. Innovex was a super small startup that had a good vision and wanted to grow. Started there. Nobody could pronounce our name. I couldn't get an email or call back from any of the largest. So, I figured, what else do you do at that point? You just have to grow and start priming and make a name for yourself. So, we've grown quite a bit and learned a lot, throughout the process, and certainly made my fair mistakes and still make them today. And so love every day of it though. Interact with great people like, Shana and Angie, and obviously certainly military and civilians. So yeah, it's great.
Awesome. I wanted to drill down a little bit because you've been at Innovex for a while. What was your progression like within the company? Were you always business development, or did you go through different positions to make your way up to business development director?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a hybrid when I came in. I was operations, I was business. So, I was running everything from our staffing department, right? So, sourcing candidates, bringing them in for interviews, doing templates, placing them on contract, and then going to business meetings as well. Interacting, building relationships with, like I've known Shana for 10 years, when Shana, Nyla was, I think you were the only employee of Nyla, and, made relationships and really grew into the role where, now I'm still involved in operations, but, we're really focusing on growing into being a successful large business and being a prime, respected prime in this space. So I've kind of more transitioned into the business development role as opposed to more of the staffing role, but still involved because I feel like you have to be. That's the name of the game.
Absolutely. And finally, Major General Yi, you come from the U.S. Army. How did you transition from the Army to the intelligence community? And is that something you ever expected to do?
Well, so first of all, thanks for inviting me to participate in tonight's panel. And I kind of feel like, Angie's throwing a little shade on Kentuckians, and Shana's throwing a little shade on those NRO engineers, and then Rob's throwing a little shade on those lobbyists. I feel like I'm supposed to, make some, remark about some group, I guess. Like,
I'd like to say on behalf of the emerging leaders, the opinions of our panelists are purely their own. They do not represent the opinions of AFCEA emerging leaders.
But, when I go back and when this thing started, actually I was on a Navy ROTC scholarship and going to Santa Clara University, small school in the Silicon Valley, and cross-enrolled to UC Berkeley. And, I might have been on academic probation a couple of times my freshman year and got kicked out of the Navy. And so, so the original, intent was the Navy. Had to, climb my way out of that and eventually get into the Army ROTC program my junior year when I got myself, together. And originally, I was branch military intelligence. Long story, we won't get into that tonight, but I ended up not going to the military intelligence school. I ended up going to the infantry school. And so infantry was my basic branch. Later becoming a logistician. But then about 2006, as a colonel, I was given responsibility of a couple of signal battalions below me. And so, in 2006, I transitioned to the signal community, not the military intelligence, but the signal. So I've been doing signal cyber stuff since about 2006. And so, it was not intentional, but it was a great transition. And I've been doing that for the most part ever since, at various levels, from brigade up to the, deployed, a couple times doing signal type stuff. And working closely with the intel community, absolutely, but more on the service provider side of the business. Now with DISA, it's it is the service provider for the commands for the most part. Great place to be. And by the way, just real quick, we do have a new director at DISA. Dual-headed as a commander of JPHU Doden, Lieutenant General Bob Skinner, great American. We transitioned with Vice Admiral Norton back in February, a great director and commander. And now we have General Skinner, and he's, leading us, into new directions with all the transitions that are happening, especially in cyber most recently. So there you have it.
He did a great job at the luncheon this morning.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, John.
Right. Circling back around to Angie and Lienert, was there ever a role that you applied for and landed, but you felt you weren't 100% qualified to do? How did you proceed with that?
I think that's been just about every job I've ever had. So starting with the Arabic linguist, I didn't know what that meant. So I just went and I took the ASVAB and I passed the test, and they said, oh, great, you get to go to California, you're going to be a linguist. And I had literally no idea what linguist meant. But as soon as they said California, I said, sign me up. I packed nothing but bathing suits. I thought it was going to be just a beach thing and I was going to be an actress or something like that. Obviously, that's not the case. But I worked hard. We started with at DLI, I think there were 60 of us that started. There were only 16 of us that graduated, and I was the only female. So I've just always put my head down and worked hard. Same thing for the web developer that I've done, the software program manager and CEO. I mean, I don't think I've been qualified for anything that I've done. So what I try to do is just work really hard and own who I am and authentic. And if I don't know something, I admit that I don't know it. And I try to learn every day. I try to learn something. And I try to surround myself with people that are so much smarter than me, that have so much more experience than me, and put myself in positions where I can constantly learn.
Right. How have mentors helped you out in the past to get you to feeling like you're really more comfortable in your job?
Is this still for me?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know if mentors help me get comfortable in my job, and mentors have helped me out along the way to challenge myself and to not allow me to kind of feel sorry for myself or kind of forcing me to, okay, this something bad happened here. That's okay. Learn from it. Many more bad things are going to happen, but you have to be able to learn. You have to be able to grow from it. So I think that's what's helped me out the most. As far as being a female CEO, as I've gone through the ranks, there weren't that many of them. So there's happy to say that there are a lot more than when I started. So that's been, I feel that you can learn from anybody, whether it's somebody that's been in the role with you, before you, after you, alongside of you. So I do try to connect with as many people now in mentorship programs and just reach out and ask questions, not necessarily in an official kind of mentor capacity, but I'm more comfortable in my own skin now. And I realize that I don't have to know all the answers, and it's okay if I ask questions. That's truly the only way that I can learn. And there's so many talented people around me that I should take advantage of their experience and their knowledge.
Excellent. Moving on to Ms. Cosgrove, was there a time when you felt like you'd failed? And if so, how did you bounce back from that? You're muted.
Example number one. I've failed. I've been fired, laid off. That was the proper term. The first time I was laid off, the company was floundering. It was trying to build a commercial, it was trying to do actually mobile advertising, and it's not very exciting. We were using like Russian people to develop the software, and I was probably not really that interested. And I listened to some dude take me down a technical rat hole, and I was the first to get fired. I cried, I was upset, but I was a software engineer. So I had like 4 jobs in 2 weeks, and it ended up being better. I've been fired in place where like your customer stops talking to you, and you got to figure out, was it you, was it me, what you could have done, and moved on. I think, like Angie, I had this idea that my life would be easy or perfect, and that if I didn't do well in a certain area, that it meant I didn't fit or I didn't belong. And I don't think that's true. I think life has ups and downs, and you can be the right person, and you can make a big mistake that you have to learn from. I think I don't love the like fail fast idea, but I like the idea that you have to be in there doing to grow. You cannot sit on the sidelines. You cannot armchair quarterback. The only way you're really going to learn is by being in there and doing it. And so I didn't love those scenarios, but I ended up finding different things. Like for one example, I got fired by this really, well, he's not super well known in our space, but like a really big entrepreneur, and everyone else around him went on to start all these companies, and I was like booted out. Well, I ended up coming up to NSA, working on Tuscan, which was super cool. I got to learn all about the architecture, and I met this cute guy in the room, and it turned out That guy was now my husband. We're celebrating our 10-year anniversary, and we've got 2 kids. And
Congratulations.
thanks. And he works for me. So I think you have this idea of how your life is going to turn out, and that if it's, especially when you're young, you see people maybe rock it up, or like they got their master's, they got married, they do this, but you don't also know like the tumbles that are going to happen, or that your slow start was deepening your roots for that you then to bloom. So hindsight is 2020. When you're going through it and you're young, you don't have a huge amount of experience, and you're still stuck with this idea of school and grades and ranking against each other. But that's not how real life works, and that's not how work works. So I think, you dust yourself off and you get back up and you try again, but you're not going to win at anything by sitting on the sidelines and playing it safe.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Rob, what do you wish you had known before taking your first management role?
That's a tough question. Man, that is a tough question. I mean, I think I would have, I think it's obvious, but you can't manage everybody the same way, and everybody has different personalities, and everyone has different interests, and, everyone has different goals, right? And so I think understanding that, ahead of time and early on, I mean, although it sounds, super simple. I mean, you're not going to relate to each person individually the same way. So really, taking the time to understand, your employees and what their interests are and what their goals are, and really what makes them tick, right? What they get excited about. I mean, I think that really helps you be a better leader and a better manager. And I think, knowing that early on, I think that's something you had to learn, or at least I had to learn. And I'm glad I did.
All right. Is there a specific circumstance you're willing to share where that experience was helpful to you?
I mean, I would say kind of taking it in a different direction. I mean, when you're starting to build teams and stuff like that, right? I mean, you can't have the same approach for everything you're going after, right? I mean, and I think different opportunities, you're going to have to interact with people differently. And, I think that just understanding that going forward will really help as well.
So thanks. And Major General Yee, is there a particular defining moment in your career that either changed your direction or fueled the direction that you had been heading in?
I think were several, pivotal points in my career. One was, I think, 9/11. So where, I was ready to get out of the military. I was done. We were in a Cold War mindset, and I was, we had 3 kids. We were busy. Work was hard, and then 9/11 hits, and I remembered why I decided to serve in the military in the first place, and it all kind of came back, right? And now I had purpose, in life for why I was doing what I was doing. So that was absolutely a pivotal moment, during my career, and for many as well, not just myself, but for me that was one, absolutely, and so many points along the way that we are vectored to be where we're at today. Like Shana got laid off or fired, a couple of times, and probably each time that happened, the trajectory in your life kind of changes, each time a little bit. I mean, getting kicked out of the Navy ROTC program, that was a big trajectory change early on. And the message there, though, is that, and that was a pretty hard fall for me, actually, is, you're freshman and, you're all built up to do great things. And then your first year, you fail pretty hard. It's a pretty hard fail for an 18-year-old. But, later on, life events, getting married, and having kids, and all those things do and should affect your career and your goals and what you want to do. And so whenever I talk with any individual about their career, what they want, I always say include your family as well, because that's important. And especially if you're in uniform, someday we take this uniform off, and when you're done, you want your family to be there. So you really can't make these decisions on your own without, if you have a family, without taking your family, into consideration. And every week, my wife asks me, "So when we going back to California?" So guess where we're going when we're done with all this stuff, man? Back to California. In fact, we're remodeling our house in California, the Bay Area, right? This week, demolition starts to remodel the home so that when we're done with this, we hopefully move back to a tidier place than when we left it some time back. So.
Angie, how did you learn to embrace risk-taking as part of your job?
I think out of necessity as part of my job. I mean, you have to take risks to grow, right? So whenever I would look at a risk, I always say, what's the worst that could happen? And I try to weigh those options. And if the worst that could happen is death or jail time or something that I'm not willing to do, then we're probably not going to do that. But if it's not one of those three things, then okay, let's try it, let's check it out. And it as long as even if we're not successful, if we can learn something from it, then I feel like it's still a win across the board.
Okay. Are there any specific risks you're willing to share that you took?
I started a company.
Oh, well, okay, that's a pretty big risk.
Everything I've done, I feel like is a risk. I joined the military, had no idea what was going to happen. Who knew that Desert Storm and everything else was upon us and how everything was going to play out. I decided to become a contractor, stay away from home, I'm not from here, live in Maryland, and see what would happen from there. And then to start a company. I mean, I had a group of people, we had the opportunity to start a company. And even though I said for a long time that that's something I wanted to do, when it came time for the opportunity, it was scary. It was really, really scary that I'm going to have a lot of people counting on me to make sure that they get paid on time, that they have benefits, that their family is going to be okay. So what I did is I sat down with each of them and said, we have this opportunity. Is this really something that you think that we want to do? We have to go into this together. And, the question was, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, we'd all have to get new jobs. And that's what we have to do now anyway. And so that's why we decided to start the company. And you kind of learn a lot from it and from the group of people that we started to where we are today.
Awesome. Shana, can you tell me about a difficult time? I feel like you mentioned this a bit earlier, but can you tell me about a time when you had a difficult boss and how did you handle that situation?
I've had some awful bosses in my life. I've had some amazing, amazing bosses. But I did work for a man who had a small business that said really awful things to me that were straight up harassment all the time. And I had just started my company and I was terrified with what to do, right? I mean, I was reporting to him and my livelihood was on the line, my reputation. I was scared. And one thing I did, if you've ever read Paul Coelho's is it The Alchemist? But I looked for signs that his comments about me were not true, that the belief I had in myself was still true, that he was but one person and but one opinion, and that his opinion wasn't necessarily valid or held by others. Even if he was the loudest person barking, it wasn't a reflection of that. And so, the challenge was I liked the work. I really liked the work and I didn't want to move. I had just come there. So it also wasn't a safe time to move. And I dug down and I really thought each day, what can I do to provide value? Each day you're there to do a job? What job needs to be done? What are you assigned? Can you, when you're sitting there and you're being paid 8 hours, and so I often thought sometimes, like, too, nobody knows the answer. You might be implementing a system and even the expert coming from the company doesn't know the answer because they've never done it in this way on that thing. And so what you can do is read, put things together, try. Like, I spent a lot of time just trying to understand what I can really do to provide a lot of value. And then I think that's where mentors and understanding other people who see the light in you, like if you feel that someone is saying you're not a good fit and you don't belong here. Sorry, that's happened to me a lot, like as a female engineer, where you're just told like, oh, you're not technical, like you should go be the face, like why don't you go be the talking? And it's like, well, I just want to do this work. And so you hunker down and you have to ignore, you have to believe in yourself and do what you really want. And you're gonna face horrible people and you're gonna face wonderful people. And that's kind of all part of it. And hopefully eventually you, like water, find your way to your path where you're happiest and the people that bring out the best in you, where you don't feel like you have to protect yourself every day. So eventually you try to leave the horrible managers and you go where your light shines. But I think it will happen, and it's not a reflection of who you are. It could be the job is a bad fit for you, the company is a horrible fit, the customer is horrible. I will say also too, and I don't mean to poop on everybody, like I've had a lot of wonderful things, but there have been customers that don't like people as well and their reaction isn't well as, so it may have nothing to do with you. You may literally walk in the room and there's something about you before you've opened your mouth that people have decided and prejudged you and they act on it, and it has nothing to do with you. And so I think just a belief of how can I help and how did I act that day, right? Did I move the needle? And did I treat people with respect and a high degree of kindness? And that's all you can do until you wait it out till that person leaves or you get your new job. So that's my tale of woe.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Shana. All right. Rob Harrison. I don't know why I just said your last name. Rob, tell me about a recent business setback. How did you recover? And I don't need it to be too specific if you prefer to keep that private, but just, just sort of generally speaking.
No, that's fine.
There's something you're willing to share.
Yeah. First off, you're a light shine, Shana. You're a rock star. Just to let you know. So a major setback for us was, I guess for me personally was, we put a lot of time and money and effort. Years into a proposal called Bamboo Tiger. It's probably awarded 3 years ago. I think everybody at Innovex felt like we delivered a really good product. I think people in the industry felt like, we were almost expected to win, which is, kind of, you never want that because then you feel like you let people down. And we ended up getting disqualified on the bid. And it was over technicality, and it is what it is, right? Ultimately the government decided not to go our way, but at the time you feel like you let, your company down, you feel like you let your teammates down, and you feel like you kind of let yourself down, and you kind of go through like, hey, am I good enough to do this? Like, am I meant to do this? Am I meant to do something else? You kind of second guess everything, and then I think, you really just kind of have to get over it and be like, you know what, hey, things happen, you gotta grow up and move on to the next thing and understand that, hey, if you have the self-confidence that you can do it, you're going to win the next thing. And you believe in yourself, then, hey, you got to move on. Right. But that's something that's kind of tough, right? Cause this is such a small community, right? So you go to the next networking event or you go see people and you almost just kind of you kind of have to hide. You want to hide, right? But you really just have to own it. And that's the other thing too. Take accountability. You kind of have to say like, hey, look, we lost, and it's disappointing, but we're moving on. it's not going to affect us long term, and we're going to reach our goals in the future. So yeah, that was something that hurt for a while. I think it still hurts, honestly, but yeah, that was one that was disappointing that I overcame, and I think we overcame as a company.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you for sharing that. Major General Yi, can you talk a bit about which leadership skills were the most difficult to develop for you?
I think confidence. You need to be, as a leader, you need to be confident. If you're not confident, the folks that follow you or that you lead will be able to see that. And that's not healthy. Okay. Now it's one thing to show confidence, but it's another thing to be confident truly. And I think maybe I still suffer a little bit of that confidence thing that, that am I qualified to do this job? I mean, a little like what Angie said earlier, you go into a new job and you don't know what the job requires, but you're going to do it and you're going to get through it. Over time, I've become more confident in taking on things that, I don't know too much about, knowing that through experience, I'll be able to get up to speed and, figure out how to maneuver or guide or lead the organization. So confidence is important. But if you don't put yourself out there, then you're not going to get that experience to overcome. And, in listening to, a little bit of what Shana said and Rob said, where, you do have, some challenges in your personal life, in your professional life. The frank, truth is that that's life. Life is full of ups and downs. And unfortunately or unfortunately, the more times you go through a difficult time, like in Rob's case, you're going to get some thick skin and you're going to build some resilience and you're going to learn a lot. And later on, when that happens to somebody that you're in a position to help them through it and know that there is, another day that will come where things will be different. And one thing, I talk to graduating college seniors a couple times a year. And what I sometimes tell them is for their military careers, I say, I hope you have some difficult times ahead of you. I hope you have some, situations where you're stressed, where you're disappointed, because without that, you won't grow. You grow through the hard times. And sometimes you grow through the difficult bosses. No one should have a boss that harasses you. That's absolutely unacceptable. But, sometimes you have some challenging bosses. I'm sure that Angie is not easy to work for sometimes. She seems like a very, on the ball person that has high expectations and high standards. And if you don't measure up, you'll probably hear from Angie about where you're coming up short, right? Not all bosses will do that. But, if you're fortunate to have a boss that'll give you some frank feedback, feel fortunate. You may feel like you're getting picked on, but you're in the process of learning. That's what it's called, sometimes. And it's very difficult for any of us to be self-aware of our shortcomings. And we will always have this idea of what we want to be, but being self-aware, is such an important thing, because, if you are aware that you can do better, then you'll work harder. If you're aware that you need help in some area, then you'll work on it. So, what we say in the military sometimes, don't believe the paper. Don't believe the things that people say or write about you, because they're nice remarks, but they're not telling you sometimes of some of the areas that you can, get better at. So, confidence for me is an area that over time I've gotten better at. It seems strange for a 2-star general to say that, but that's one area. Then I would say, that whole self-aware thing, is so important, especially as a leader at any level. So I guess I've talked enough. Jonathan, back to you.
I want to piggyback on his comment, not about me being a tough boss, I'll own that. So I 100% appreciate and own that comment. But I think that you hit something there. A lot of times people just assume if you're a CEO or you're a manager, you're confident, you're comfortable in front of groups. And I can't tell you, like, I'm still, public speaking is my least favorite thing to do. I used to, when I had to do training, I would get so nervous when I would have to go up in front of a group. I would literally go and throw up like 15 minutes beforehand. And then, like, as the years progressed, and I would just sweat through everything. So usually if I have to go up in front of a group, I'll wear something dark so you can't see that I sweat through everything. So it's more of a fake it till you make it kind of. When you walk in a room and, you know, people whisper, say something, just own it. Just, you know, go in with your head held high. And, you know, I'm sure that there's all kinds of other people that aren't comfortable either, but just be authentic, just be genuine. And I used to go to networking events just so I could practice and try out just kind of having conversations, because I'm not a really chatty person. So it's a little harder for me because I'm just more straight to the point, but just practicing things and having things that I want to get out of it. So just assuming that because somebody's a CEO or they're a manager and they're comfortable in groups, that's often not the case. So that's definitely a fake it till you make it.
Yeah, you know, I think just being comfortable in your own skin for many people, at least for me, was hard at first, because you have this idea of what a leader is supposed to, how a leader is supposed to act, how they're supposed to look, what they're supposed to say. And the sooner you find your voice, the sooner that you find who you are and are comfortable with who you are, you know, the better life will be, I'll just say. And that, you know, a lot of the stress and anxiety starts to go away when you're okay with who you are.
Well, thank you both for weighing in on that. Rob Harrison, Shana, I said your last name again. I think it's just because it's in your right beneath your portrait. Rob, Shana, would either of you like to weigh in on this?
No, I'll wait for the next question.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll as well. I think they covered it really well.
Okay. All right. Shana, what's the most important leadership lesson that you've learned, and how has it proven invaluable to you?
I think what Rob said about leading each person individually, and for me, that's shutting up, really listening to what the person is saying and making sure that they are happy and satisfied. There's a lot of books, and so I'm a big reader. I read all the time. And I think one of the best things you can just do for anyone, you don't have to agree with them, you don't have to solve their problem, is listen. Let them talk. And I learned recently, you know, it's also a tip for relationships, marital relationships, but it's a tip to mirror back what you know, like I think if I heard you correctly, you said this, and to delve deeper and to just let the person tell you their story and talk. And I think the future of technology and the future of leadership is much more individualized. It's not about lumping people into categories. It is understanding that people are rich and complex and meeting them at their specific needs versus taking each person and fitting them into a bucket of how they should work or what your impression is of who they are, and that people have perhaps a lead function that you hired them for, but they have multiple skills within that are allowed. And I think the more you allow people to bring them full selves and to feel comfortable talking to you, the better you will be as a leader, because you can serve them, you can serve the people who are really like doing the work. And that's the point of leadership, is to clear the obstacles for the people, whether it's their mind, not having the right resources. But I think we really focus on that. And then as a company too, for our culture, I like to say, well, I might wince, like you're free to talk to me and I might not like, I'm not a great poker face. So it might, I might have my hands like this while you're telling me, good news does not get better with AIDS. So just tell me. But I want everyone to feel comfortable that they are able to talk and be themselves before we start working on perhaps the next step or solution. And so I think a lot of issues come out of people not feeling heard or understood.
Thank you, Shana. I'm going to dip into some audience questions here. Just as a reminder to our audience, feel free to add some questions to the chat window if you have questions for our panelists in general or for panelists in particular. So this one I'm going to direct to Rob because it has to do with business development. What advice would you give to an entry-level business development representative?
I would say it's all about relationships. I mean, really, at the end of the day, I mean, I would say two things. It's all about relationships and never, ever compromise your integrity. I think, I mean, the community is so small. It's all about, I mean, if you need to know something, you can reach out to somebody, they'll help you find the information, right? And if people want to work with people they know and trust and respect, and they like working with, right? So I would say, I mean, to build your network, understand who you can trust and who you want to work with, and it never hurts to share, right? It's the stuff you can share, right? And then I would also say that, I mean, there's not to throw shade, like, we've talked about before, right? But I mean, there's examples of people in the community that have done stuff, made decisions that compromise their integrity, and you kind of get the black eye, and it's a long game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You're going to be in the industry for a long time. You're going to grow together with a lot of the people you come into the industry with, you might know for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, right? So, just make sure you do business the right way. And I would say also, there's a lot of people that are there to help you, right? I mean, we've talked about mentorship, right? I mean, people were there to kind of guide me along when I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, pre NSA 21. I'm like, what are these different organizations? Like, what is the TA? What is TAO? Like, what, you have no idea, right? So, and please, leverage somebody like me, and I'd be happy to make, introductions to, people that I believe are my mentors and people that I work with, and, leverage us, and we'll make sure that, you understand what, the way things work, and help as much as possible.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Rob. And Shana, Angie, would, business development is, I'm sure, no small part of running your own business. Would either of you like to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I have a story. Amanda O'Donoghue is our COO, and I hired her because I was an engineer working on contract, and I needed someone to attend business development meetings. And there was a really big meeting at DISA, and Amanda had never been in the military. She was a chemist, and she wanted out of being a chemist and out of working in a lab. And I was like, dress nicely, bring your cards, stick out your hand, and ask people about themselves. And I said, say, I'm brand new to this. I have no idea what I'm doing. And she got us on 3 teams that day. I think that business development is about the long game, and it is about making clear who you are, right? So it seems weird sometimes to go narrow, but if you are a geek about a certain thing, like I love operational performance of systems, like it's my jam, love it. And not a lot of people are into that, but that's okay. But then, it helps people know what contracts might be a good fit, who are people to connect you. You cannot be all things to all people. So the more you are yourself, right? If you are kind of quirky, that's who you are. You can't hide that forever. You gotta, and if like your company's kind of quirky or has a unique bent, that's not something to hide. So you don't need to bland down, be yourself and be who you are, and you will build those relationships. And yeah, I agree with Rob, keep your integrity. It's for me personally, sorry, not to be the tearjerker of the evening, but like my mom died when I was 30, and then her best friend, who seems super healthy, died 2 years later. So they lived to 65, but to me that still seems so young. And so I always think like, well, I could die tomorrow, and how did I treat people, right? Did I show up and did I give kindness to someone? Did I throw out a helping hand? Did I provide value? And I think I also, I've learned a lot from Rob. Even when we met 10 years ago, neither one of us knew what the hell we were doing. And Rob is, I don't know, like 20 years younger than me, but like he's got such unique insight. And I think there's so much to learn from everyone. And so I think having that fresh attitude of there's a lot to learn from everyone. And if you get a bad vibe from someone, trust your gut. So if you get a bad feeling around someone, trust it. It's like dating.
And just to reiterate, I mean, I agree 100% with what Rob and Shana said. It's all about relationships, definitely about integrity. I had a partner when I first started this business. I bought him out about 4 years later. And I was actually on contract and running the contract, working with the mission, working with the customer. And when I had to come out and take over as CEO, he had left such a bad taste in industry and partners. No, people didn't want to work with us because they couldn't trust us because of he wouldn't follow through with the things that he said he was going to do. So I said for the first 2 years, I just carried around my mop and bucket, and I could go into a room and I could tell just by the way people made eye contact with me, their body language was that something bad had happened. And I would say, okay, I got my mop and bucket. Where's the mess? Let's clean it up. We had to reinvent ourselves. We had to be open and honest. And like Shana said, you don't want to misrepresent yourself. You don't want to try to pretend that you're something that you aren't, because people will call you out on that. If you can't deliver, then that's your reputation. And if you're playing the long game, then just be open and honest. Like if you know that you want to get to the area that Shana's in, but that's not where you are now, this is where I am. And these are some of the things that we're looking at doing. This is ultimately where we want to go. It's okay to say those things, but just be honest and open and just own it.
All right. Thank you both for weighing in on that. Major General Yi, you're not necessarily selling DISA to businesses, but you might be interacting with other agencies or Congress. Do you have any tips on networking that a newly minted business development person might find useful?
So first of all, I feel like we're age bracketing here with Shana calling out Rob being 20 years younger. And I'll just share with you, last month I became a grandfather. So
Congratulations.
for the first time, little granddaughter. So I'm not, trying to say that I'm older than anyone. Here, but it's wonderful. So I'll just start with that. So my job at DISA is to be the Senior Mission Partner Engagement Executive, right? So the director, 3-star, very busy, with a lot of operational things. And so Admiral Norton, when I came on board 2 years ago, said, your job is to be that executive that ensures that we build trust with our mission partners, right? And so the theme that I'm hearing and the theme that, that we try to reinforce is that trust. If we say we're going to do something, then we better do it, right? If something doesn't work for whatever reason, and we have, as a service provider, we provide a lot of different services. If something's not working and we don't respond, that's our brand, that's our credibility at stake. And so your word is what you have. Our mission partners, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, now Space Command, Space Force, Coast Guard, they don't all have to use our services. Much of what they do, they can go elsewhere or within their own service, to include all of the fourth estate organizations. Defense Logistics Agency, Defense Health Agency, you name it, there's 20 something of them. our brand, our ability to ensure that our mission partners have confidence in us, is a direct result of relationships, which was what was said earlier by Rob. If an executive or a senior leader at, you name it, any one of the organizations or anyone at the Pentagon can't pick up the phone and call one of us and get a response, or someone, call a senior and we pick up the phone, if they can't get through to us, that's a bad thing, right? So being responsive, building that trust is something that you can't underestimate how important that is. Back to what Angie was saying, where she's cleaning up on aisle 9 with a mop and bucket, until you rebuild that trust, and that sometimes takes time. So fortunately for this past year during the pandemic, because any organization, you'll have like mixed experiences. We're 18,000 person workforce worldwide, doing a lot of different things in a lot of different time zones at a lot of different levels. But interestingly, during the pandemic, when we had to increase capacity, increase the ability for telework, increase circuits, increase VPN concentrations, we were Johnny on the spot, and we were able to surge and provide that support, and got a good reputation for that from our mission partners. The CIOs of the services in particular were just always complimentary, and still are. Our challenge now is to maintain that. Once we've built that trust up, it could go away really quick. So it's not something that you get and it's there. It's something that always has to be cultivated, and fed to ensure that it's, going to be there. So not so different in some ways than, what Rob and Shana and Angie talked about.
Thank you, Major General Yee. Just as a sort of a follow-up to that, you're in a unique position on this panel, in that you're in the role of a customer for, I want to say, most of the audience here. What are some of the challenges that DISA has had specifically related to their contractor workforce? What's going to be a good counter example for behaviors for contractors not to do with respect to the agencies they support?
Well, I kind of touched upon it in the chat back. There are, transition points between contracts, and that's always kind of a risky time for, the agency, meaning that we're expecting a certain level of service to continue. And when the contract changeover happens, sometimes the contracted firm, may have a hard time staffing up quick enough to be able to support the continuing operations and have the right folks with the right certifications to be able to do the job, right? And sometimes the larger the contract, the bigger the risk, and the larger the challenge it is to get the right folks lined up to be able to step in on day one and move out. And so kind of back to what I said earlier about, the trust piece, if you overpromise and then don't deliver, then that could be a problem. So we have a broad array of contract support, and generally speaking, very good support generally speaking. And so and those that come into a new contract will relatively quickly understand what they need to do and get after if they want to continue doing business. And so I won't say everything is peachy. I'm not sure that's a good term or not, but we do have our challenges from time to time, and we use the tools that we have to mutually get to the right place, right? And so, but that contract changeover, that's always a challenge, right? So.
Thank you, Major General Yee. Folks in the audience, we are officially out of audience questions now. I didn't expect to burn through them so quickly. So if you have anything you would like to ask any of the panelists, please feel free to add some questions to the chat window. All right, sort of change the order here. So let's go back to Rob Harrison. Rob, what has led you to stay in the intelligence community versus going into the commercial sector?
I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, we talked about relationships in the past. I mean, I think that's one thing. I mean, Shana's a panelist on here. I mean, Shana and Brian are going to be at my wedding in 10 days, right? I mean, it's like the people you kind of grow up in the industry with are close friends. I mean, it's more than business acquaintances and things like that. I mean, and then it's really cool because you get to work together, and I mean, you're also playing together. I mean, there's a lot of fun events that you're constantly going to. And then I think the third and probably the most important thing is the mission, right? I mean, we're really doing really important work for the country, right? And the things that we support, change lives and make a difference. So I think those are a lot of the things. And there's so many opportunities, right, within this market, within this industry, right? I mean, I don't think you really have to limit yourself. So, I mean, I know Angie's talked about, from being in the military to being a web developer to, program management to, getting involved in management to owning a company. I mean, Shana, same thing, right? So, I mean, I think, whatever you want to do within this space, I think, you can kind of create your own path if you're optimistic and, you stick to it. And I think, with this, I mean, I know we're losing so many people to the commercial sector. So I think it's also important that we understand that, and that, this is an important industry. And, I hope that we can create more avenues for people to stay and grow and reach their goals.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Rob. Let's circle back to Angie. Oh, we have another audience question. Angie, what are some personal strategies that you use to help you persevere, continue to stay focused through challenges, and overall remain positive and moving forward?
So usually if something really bad happens, and it does from time to time, depending on the degree of how bad it is, I let myself have one day to have a pity party and think about all the things I did wrong and how horrible I am. And, the whole team and I will just, pick ourselves apart but do it in more of a fun way. And then get up the next morning and say, okay, that's over. Now we move ahead. We look at the lessons that we can learn and how we're not going to do that in the future. And then we're just going to double down and just bet on ourselves. So many times things are done that are outside of our control. So what are some of the things that we can control and or influence that are going to help with the drivers for our success? And then just trying to think about, if it's really bad, just all of the positive impacts that you can have in your role, helping other people with their businesses, helping out the community. I mean, the veteran community is really important to me. We participate in Skill Bridge, so bringing people in and giving them opportunities they wouldn't normally have, bringing in interns, doing speaking engagements, things that if sometimes the work is just the government decides to reorg, which takes about everything that you're going after and all the B&P money that you just wasted. So let's try to do something more positive, have some positive outlets to be able to give back and make a difference. And remember that you're part of a much larger community.
Okay, so pity party and then lessons learned.
Yep, pity party.
Okay.
Only one day.
Only one day. Very important that it's only one day, huh?
Yep. No, I don't want to see no tears the next day. That's it. One day.
Okay. Got it. Right. Anybody else on the panel? Would you like to weigh in on that? Personal strategies for perseverance and continuing to stay focused and positive.
I'll just say, I told you Angie was a tough boss. You get one day for pity party and then move on. That's it.
My strategies for persevering are, I think one advice I heard, and I think this applies no matter what your role is that you have something you do that's physical. So no matter how intensely obsessed with your career you are, that you do something that brings you joy in a physical way, whether that's hitting the gym, whether it's hiking, riding your bike, whatever it is, but lean into exercise and have something where you're moving your body in a healthy way. And then I think having a hobby or a passion on the side that's important to you. Maybe that's like I'm obsessed with my puppy, you know, or taking your kids to their games or being a soccer coach, but life is more than just work. And so I think, and also like I build in anchors of joy throughout the day. So I might have a bad day, but then I focus on like, well, what brings me joy? And it's like putting my daughter to bed, and we read good night stories of Rebel Girls, and we talk about that. And, you know, so in each day, there's going to be ups and downs and waves in the day, but what can you do in the day to, you know, bring you joy? Maybe it's gossiping with a friend, like, or texting somebody like a funny meme or a joke that brings you joy. I also, I think I flipped to focusing on what I'm grateful for and gratitude. You know, there was a time where I wasn't sure if I was going to get married, if I would ever find the right person. I wasn't sure if I could have children. I wasn't sure my it. And so I do say each day, like, I get to drive these kids to school, even if they're horrible and annoying, like, but I you know, this was my dream. And I get to work with my husband, and I get to do this, but it's true, I don't have to. And honestly, I've worked commercial briefly, and I just wasn't motivated by like a lot of the, I don't know, trying to get people richer. Like, at least we're working on something that matters. Like, you know, it just pushing advertising, helping build platforms that like are, anyway, I like what we do. I love what we do. And I'm glad that we're helping, you know, prevent the next pipeline attack on our industry. Like, that actually is a good way to spend my life. If I'm going to be out of the house and using my brain, I want to be a force for good. And so I am glad that I'm not working on credit card systems or portfolio analysis of like people's financial plans. Like, I like building this and ensuring that we are catching the bad guys. I get to have my green badge.
It's a great way of thinking about it. Rob, Major General Yi, care to share any personal strategies for perseverance and, you know, really powering through challenges?
Well, I'll start. I guess, you know, I'm lucky to be part of a team, and anytime you're part of a team, you support each other, right? And you know you have teammates that are counting on you, then you get that energy, you get that, you know, you get that drive to continue on. And just like the other panel members that are driven to continue to doing good and improving what they do, that's part of the, you know, there might be an endorphin involved with this or two, but you know, you do get the adrenaline, you do get the energy to step up and take on the challenges when they come to you. And sometimes the challenge is a hard problem set, but sometimes the challenge is a setback to overcome, right? And back to Angie's one-day pity party, you know, and then get back at it because you know that people are depending on you, your customers, your employees, you name it. Your teammates, and we don't want to let them down. And so much of that is driven as a result of not wanting to let anyone down. Whether that's good or healthy or not, that drives a lot of us. And, you know, when they did the studies, you know, following World War II about why, you know, service members risked their lives during combat, it wasn't because of the flag, it was because of their teammates. That's what it was, not wanting to let them down. So that's a lot of it for me.
Yeah, I think everyone's kind of talked about it as well, but keeping things in perspective, right? I mean, this is a job that we're ultimately fortunate to do, and serves great purpose. But we're going to have ups and downs. We're going to have great days. We're going to have terrible days, right? But ultimately, the thing that stays constant is loving your family and knowing they're there for you, and the fact that there's always the next day, to improve and get better and solve things. So I would say that. And then the other thing is celebrate the wins and the successes, right? I mean, I know a lot of people that they're just always on to the next thing and it's the next goal, which is good. I mean, you should be, right? But take a little time for yourself and maybe with your family or whatever to be able to enjoy, like, hey, this was a great thing. This was, we got, somebody hired on contract. We got a customer kudos today. Like, take that employee out, take them to lunch, take them to dinner, like, show them, some sort of gratitude, respect for that accomplishment. Hey, we got a small win. We got a big win, because, you're going to have your bad days, you're going to have your good days, but the good days are going to far outweigh the bad days. But, just make sure that, you are celebrating those wins, so that, when you have the losses, you at least know, hey, you're in a positive state of mind and you're moving forward.
I love that one of these strategies was pity party and another one of them was anti-pity party. All right, we're getting a lot more questions here. This one I think is more for Angie and Shana. Shana, let's start with you. I'm jumping around here. There we go. When you first started your companies, how did you differentiate yourself and set yourself up as a leader and a strong brand in the industry? As a small new business operating in the same space as more mature small or mid-sized businesses that have amazing culture and established brand, do you have advice on how to differentiate yourself in a way that enables growth in this space?
Well, first of all, congratulations to starting your business in the space. It's probably the hardest space ever to have a business that is growing. So I applaud you for doing it. And I think you should know it is very hard. And I think in the beginning, you just have to present who you are. In the very beginning, your company is you. When you're 10 and under, you have like no incumbency to really sell unless you happen to be owning like completely a project. And you just stick out your hand and you let people know what value you can provide. And some people are going to dismiss you out of hand, and some people are going to give you a shot. I think one thing that I really admired about Rob was Rob treats everyone with a high degree of respect and integrity, no matter what their business size, no matter how good they actually are at business. And he understands if you're able to add value to the team and how you might be able to help. And sometimes you just really need someone to give you a shot. So sometimes it's a game of probability of like, I'll give an example too. Like there was a contract that there was a contract that I knew everybody and everything backwards and forwards, and high five. They threw me a baby shower. I could not get on that contract, to save my life. I just really assumed that I would get on that contract. I had a lot of value. They're like, you're yet another government contractor. Like, I don't know why we would give you a shot. I really don't care. And then there was another contract that they were like, all right, we'll give you a shot. So you kind of really don't know. You can have an expectation of how things are going to turn out, and it's going to be random, but you really just focus on exactly who you are and build your dream and take it one day at a time. It takes a while. It took me, I remember I met Angie and I was so jealous of her company size, and never, there was a dream like, oh, to be 10 people was huge. And now it's like, well, my company has a reputation, but we're not, I might not know the specific area or provide the value that you and your 3 people provide. Maybe you guys are the exact people for that one thing and we absolutely need you. So I just say chin up, keep going at it, right? It's not for the faint of heart. It's easy to start your company. It's hard to keep it going. It's hard to grow it. I think that's the real secret. Anyone can start a company, but it takes real guts to keep it going. It takes a lot of perseverance, a lot of chin up. And thank you, Rob, for treating everyone with a high degree of respect. I've been in plenty of places where people don't even look you in the eye and you know, pass you by.
Thank you for the kind words.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate it.
So I'll jump on that too. My head's disappearing from the sun, so sorry about that, but what are you gonna do? So about the brand, I say a lot of things. One, that know what you're good at and know what you're not good at. It's really important when you're trying to build out your business, because it sets the tone for everything, from the people that you hire, the investments that you're gonna make, what you represent. Kind of have that, I think as Shana said, know who you are and what you want to go after and what you want to do. And then as you start to build it, I found in my experience, it was better to kind of build that depth than to go out too far, too broad, because again, it wasn't necessarily something that we were really good at. So then it becomes, are you just going to be a company that just staffs a bunch of people and just hires them, does butts and seats? And that was never something that was of value or interesting to me. I wanted to be able to bring that mission value, bring that depth, and be able to build on what we did. So I think know your worth. And with that, you know, bid to staff. Don't just take a job because somebody offered you, hey, you can jump on my contract and I'll give you $25 rates. That doesn't count as a contract if you can't actually staff. And then you're going to have to deal with all the subcontracts and all of the paperwork, and it's just a nightmare. And then realize, especially as you're small, that every single person that you hire represents your brand. So you may have a few people in there and they're in the government spaces or in different offices. That may be the only person that customer knows that works for Intelligenesis, that company. So make sure that you're kind of keeping tabs on what's going on with the employees, the quality of people that you're hiring. And if you make a bad hire, correct it, deal with it. So by trying to look the other way and pretending it's not a problem, it's only going to cause you more problems in the end. So make sure that you are out in front, know what's going on, you're talking to your customers, you're setting that tone for your company, I think is really important. Those are some hard lessons that I had to learn. So for what it's worth.
Thank you, Angie. Rob, I'm going to kick this over to you because while you're not the owner and CEO of Innovex, you have been with them since the beginning, and you've in many ways been the face of them. How do you go about? How did you go about establishing Innovex's brand?
Well, there was certainly a lot more than just me. That's for sure. I mean, I think it's, I mean, as Angie said, right? I mean, it's, and Shana, I mean, you only get one chance to make a reputation, right? So, I mean, you got to put the right people on contract. You have to treat people the right way. And I mean, I mean, Shana, you're one of the masters of the brand. I mean, I almost feel like you should be taking this question because you're amazing with branding. And I think it's just doing business the right way ultimately, and making relationships, and I think the brand kind of comes, right. And I think we almost in a way struggled a little bit with our identity, you know, to be honest with you, right. Like were we a software company? Like we were a software company. That's what we like kind of started out to be, right. But our first prime contract was a sustainment contract doing, you know, 24/7, 365 ops, right. So then it's like, well, are we a software company or are we a sustainment, you know, company, right? And you kind of have these growing pains as you kind of learn what company you are, right? And you kind of build a brand around that. And I mean, I would just say, as long as you're hiring the right people and doing the right things, you know, people will want to work with you, and the brand kind of comes. But I'm not exactly the best person to talk about, logos and LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. But I think really just building a good reputation of a quality company that people want to work with, that goes a long way. And I think that's really how you grow.
Oh, thanks, Rob. And Major General Yee, as a high-level leader in the military, you've had to build organizations. What are your thoughts on building high-performance organizations from scratch?
Trust. So you have to build trust. And there's a good book out there called The Speed of Trust. And it talks about how if you can build trust within your organization, then you will be a more optimal organization, right? The reason why the government has so much bureaucracy is a lack of trust. If I need you to sign a form to confirm that you did something, it's because we don't trust that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, right? So in the internal workings of an organization, building that trust is critical to optimizing performance in whatever you're doing. It could be in the government, it could be anywhere. And so, that is one, key area. Building the team, right? And that's kind of part of it as well, where you depend upon each other to get after a mission set. If you're saying starting from scratch, that kind of happens kind of frequently in the military, where we put a task force together and now you're going through the whole, like, whether you subscribe to that or not, the forming, storming, norming, and performing thing. And so there are plenty of opportunities to, start from scratch. It's not the same as starting a small business, not by any measure. There's a different kind of risk there. But, in terms of building a high performing organization, the military get lots of opportunities to try that. and we're not always successful, okay? Let's just say, but we get lots of opportunities to try that. And lots of opportunities to fail, but also to succeed in developing those. So I've done that several times. Every time you deploy, it feels like you're starting off with a new team. I've had several deployments, where we have to quickly get together. And sometimes the urgency of the situation helps the team to bond faster. And that is proven. When you're an extremist, then, a lot of the noise goes away and you kind of hunker down to the basics and get after it. So anyway.
Yeah, I apologize for almost laughing when you said that at the start. I thought you said stressed. I thought you said stressed, not trust. But it sounds like that might also be the case.
Well, stress, sometimes there's stress as well.
Okay.
But I like saying this chin up thing. It sounds like an exercise, a lot of chin ups.
All right. Well, here's another question. And I think this might be a question for everybody here. Let's start with you, Shana. Has the pandemic changed the way you look at your career, with being more creative to accomplish the tasks, or maybe how to balance your life better? And do you believe the pandemic has helped or hurt?
Helped or hurt. When the pandemic first happened, I was thinking about times in history. So my grandmother came over from Russia. My grandmother was a first generation, and she and her whole family were split apart because the Cossacks were coming through her town and literally trying to kill the Jews. And she only had one child much later in life because she was scared to have to run again. And I thought, this is our problem, having to stay home, right? Like that was my reaction, was this, what a blessed time we are that we are able to stay home. I think that for me, it didn't change that much, because with my mother dying early, I've always had the sense of, who am I and who do I want to be, and making sure that I am building in time to be a great mother and a good wife and a good sister. And that while I am dreaming and working on building this industry disruptive government contractor that is creative and I've got this big audacious goal that is involving and is trying to include other people and change the way things are done, I will get there, but I still have to end up there as a mother, as a wife, and as a sister, and to do that with health. And so I think that's so I think that's what my long way of saying no. And I think I've always understood like that people work in different ways. Like I didn't love sitting at work late at night. I didn't love going to happy hours, which is a common thing. And yet that didn't impact my ability to work or my value or my ability to connect with other people. So that's my long way of saying no, because I have throughout my years been intentional, very intentional about who I am and how I'm living. And so I was grateful to find myself with my kids, sometimes annoyed with them touching me nonstop, but that was my dream, to have this life. So I think sometimes these things end up being a real reflecting point of what do you really want with yourself, and where do you want to be? And if you wake up one day and you find out that your gut is repeatedly telling you that this is not for you, you have to listen, whether or not you have a clear answer on the other side, but only you really know what's best for you.
Shana. Angie, same question. Has the pandemic changed the way you look at your career, and do you believe it's helped or hurt?
So I think that, I mean, it was awful, right? That horrible what we've had to go through over the past year. But there have been some very positive things that have come out of it, for us, for our business, for me personally. I was able to slow down. We're usually always so busy that we say, well, as soon as things slow down, as soon as we get through past this next RFP, then we're going to do this, we're going to do it. There was never that time. So the world did finally slow down, and my team were able to do a lot of the training, to reflect, to be a lot more creative than we've ever had the opportunity to be before, which I think has been really great. My son, both my kids graduated in 2020, my son from BMI and my daughter from high school. And so it gave me a little extra time with my son before he went off to the Army. So that was really nice. And a little extra time with my daughter this past year before she's gone to school. So that's been nice as well. And it also gave me the time to get involved in other activities and have other hobbies that I've never been able to do before, because I, again, was always working. And it helped me to see what I want to do beyond where I am today. And I've been stuck for 5 years not knowing what I wanted to do beyond where I am today. So I now know what that looks like. And that to me is very exciting.
Right. Let's kick the question over to Rob Harrison. Has the pandemic changed the way you look at your career, and do you believe it's helped or hurt? And with being more creative to accomplish tasks, has it helped you figure out how to balance your life better?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, obviously the negatives we've all seen for the last year and a half, obviously with the deaths and the sickness. I mean, I'm glad to see things are coming back to a more normal state right now. But I mean, I will say from a business standpoint, I think things have improved. I mean, operationally, I mean, you look at, we're on a Zoom webinar for, a mentorship night, right? I mean, this never would have happened 2 years ago. I mean, if this would have happened, a week before, 2 weeks before, a month before, it would have just been canceled, right? I mean, now we're doing virtual, NAPI events. And so, I mean, I think one of the things that we've seen from a company standpoint is we all got more efficient, right? I mean, instead of having a, hour-long meeting and traveling from location to location, I mean, I spend half my day on the road, now all that time is spent, doing, putting that into other aspects of the business, right? So I think it definitely makes you more efficient. I think geographically too. I mean, Major General Yi talks about, wanting to move to California, right? I know that might be harder in the military right now, but I mean, if ultimately, if you wanted to do your job from, California, New York, Florida at this point, I mean, I think you could probably do 90% of your job remote, doing things like Zoom and Teams. I mean, if you really wanted to. I mean, I'm a face-to-face person. I think that was hard for me going through the pandemic. Ultimately, is that I like to meet people. I like to go to lunches and meet people for happy hours. And I think one of the challenges is really having a conversation, being like, oh, you're doing that, or oh wow, what is this? You learn more about things. But I mean, operationally, I think even as we go back to a more traditional in-person workforce, I think people are still going to be leveraging technology to be more efficient. So I think that is one aspect where I think it's extremely valuable, even to the point where, I mean, I think it delays the point where you might need an office, right? I mean, when you're the size of Intelligenesis or maybe, Innovex, you might need an office, right? But I think before it was kind of the status quo to, hey, you need an office to show, your status and people take you serious. Now I think it kind of delays that for a long time until you have a big, large back office infrastructure. You could stay pretty lean for as long as you need to.
Thanks, Rob. And finally, Major General Yi, same question.
I think
Has the pandemic changed the way you look at your career, and how do you believe it's helped or hurt, or maybe made things more efficient?
I kind of echo what Angie and Rob said. I mean, first of all, what a tragedy for all those that we've lost as a result of the pandemic, and we all have friends that we know that have had bad things happen to them. So, but if there is positive stuff that came out, it's absolutely what was already said. Maria and I, for the first time in 34 years, we're married 35 years now of marriage, get to spend time together, consistently, because before that you're always on the road traveling, always working. So shutting down the travel was really just an unexpected nice surprise, I think, for us. And I picked up a hobby for the first time. I take pictures of birds now, because what we would do is, take walks around, parts of Maryland. There's all kinds of nature preserves here. So I bought a camera last March, and find me on Facebook and friend me, and you'll see the bird pictures that I take. They're kind of funny. They're not great, but now I have something to do that I didn't have before, that I can do, and spending time with my wife, because I gotta stay busy. So, but what a neat thing to be able to spend time with your loved ones, So that's what's on the upside for us. I retire from the military in a year, so I'll change uniforms, and having a taste of being able to work remotely and optimize using collaboration tools has really given me a taste of what might be able to come at some point in the future. So it hasn't changed it yet, but maybe we'll see.
Right. And one final question, and I want to give this one some time because I feel like there might be some lengthy answers. And we'll start with you, Shana. If you could go back in time and give your younger self one tip about your career, what would that be?
Well, it's hard to pick just one tip, but I think I'm torn between these two. So I can't be boxed, and I don't like rules. So, so forget your one answer limit.
Your tip is never be boxed in.
I think it's two things. One is, it took me a really long time to know who I was and to trust in who I was, and that my unique self had value. I, for so long, was looking at other people and other lives and examples as if they knew what was best and that they held the secret. And even if they do, it's not the answer for you, right? They know what's best for them, and it's not what's best for you. And as you might tell, I have a very unique style and a unique perspective. And for so long, I tried to modify myself to be just like everybody else. I was ashamed of being different. And I just wanted to be like everybody else. And I think that it's hard to be different, you know, like you kind of want to fit in, but different in what makes you different is what makes you special. So I think that while it might be hard to really lean into your idiosyncrasies or your strengths because you think your strength should be X and it's really Y, you have to own it. And that's where your joy comes, and people can tell where you get your most joy. And I think, you know, I wanted to know that it would all turn out okay. Like I wanted to know that I would get married and have kids, and I wanted to know that I would go straight up the ladder and be this like CEO. Well, I got divorced and I've been laid off, and the business hasn't been easy, but it's also been, with each sadness has been great joy on the other side. And with each negative experience has been also a lot of learning and excitement. It's a true door closing, right? Sometimes you're not brave enough to close the door, and so somebody else closes the door for you and it opens up. So I think it's going to be a long, challenging journey that's amazing. I think that that's what I would say is like, I can't tell you how it's going to turn out. You don't even want to know. You don't want to know what's around the bend, because it could be good and it could be bad. And the bad thing could be the good thing, and the good thing could turn out to be a sack of shit. So you really just don't know. You don't want to know how it's going to be okay. But you yourself are amazing, and you exactly as you are has a lot of value, and like never forget that.
Oh, thank you, Shana. Angie Lienert, same question. If you could go back in time and give your younger self one tip about your career, what would that be? One or more tips. We budgeted some time for this one.
That's fine. So, and I think similar to Shana, it's when I started, I worked at a gas station. I was 19. I couldn't afford to go to college. Nobody was signed for loans. There were no job opportunities. The military was my ticket out. So if I could go back to that gas station attendant that I did, which was actually, I love that job, by the way, because there's so many things going on. I would just, say that believe in yourself and trust in your instincts, that it's going to be okay, because you just never know. Just keep working hard, keep your head down, and never give up on yourself. And sometimes that's easier said than done, but as long as you can just work hard, believe in who you are, I think you can persevere through anything.
Thank you, Angie. Rob, the same question again. You've got a time machine. You can tell your past self one thing or more things. What are those one or more things?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I probably haven't persevered as much as, Shana or Angie or probably Major General Lee or Yi, sorry. I feel like don't settle for the status quo is what I would say, right? I mean, so when I came into the industry, I was pretty young. I would say really young for doing what, I do now. Now I think people are kind of starting a little bit younger and coming into the space. It's like a different time, right? But I mean, everybody tried to tell you the way things were done, right? I mean, I was told like, oh, you have to go listen to the graybeards, do what the graybeards tell you. I mean, okay, that's cool, right? But they're going to tell you can't do something and things are done a certain way. And the way things are done now are way different than they were done, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? And I think that's because, there's a group of, say, members of small businesses that said, hey, like, we're done being subservient to the largest, we can go after work and we can support mission and we can do this the right way. And we're gonna be a threat, right? And I think because of that, things change. Now you see kind of the landscape of the small business realm, right? I mean, we're getting opportunities, and we're about to graduate into a large, right? So I mean, I say we for like the next 6 months or so, but small businesses are getting opportunities that they never would have gotten 10 years ago. And I think it's because, we've constantly pressed the issue and kind of broken that societal norm or industry norm of what we're able to do, right? And I think it's improved the community, and I think the government's getting better results. And ultimately, I think that's a testament to a lot of people, Shana, Angie, across the board, right? And so that's what I would say, right? Is everyone has an opinion on the way things should be done and the ways you should pursue, operations and business opportunities. And sometimes you just need to take a step back and think for yourself, is this, can we go after something, do we have a play at this, right? And there's always going to be somebody to tell you you can't do something. And just, sometimes think it for yourself and just say, hey, you know what, we're going to do it. And if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, you'll live to fight another day. But that'd be my thought.
Thanks, Rob. And finally, Major General Yee. Same question. If you could go back in time and give your younger self one tip, what would that be?
Just maybe a kind of a reflective question. Just a couple of thoughts. One is, don't worry as much about what you can't control. And, a lot of, my colleagues, coming up through, this is kind of a life question, we worry about things that we shouldn't worry about because it really does take a toll on you and those that, are near you, right? I'd come home from work, stressed out about something I couldn't control. That gets transferred to your family, and that's not fair to them. And it's the hardest thing to do, to not worry. When I was young, Shana, funny thing, I'd worry about, will I get married someday? Will I have kids someday? That whole thing. Now, ended up getting married when I was 20 years old. So that answer was like, that question was answered pretty quick while I was in college. But we worry about a promotion that we may have no control over. We go into an interview and, they're going to pick somebody and they don't pick you and you're mad at the person that got picked. Well, that person, didn't do anything to you, but now you're kind of pissed at that person for moving forward and not you. And you're worried about something that you had no control over at that point, So, don't worry about what you can't control. And the other is, life is going to be hard, but you'll get through it. And you've heard of ups and downs of folks here today. You're not going to be given anything that you can't get through. I was told, God won't give you anything that you will not be able to get through. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. We've heard that many times as well. And there's a certain amount of truth to that as well. We come out of things a little bit scarred up, but Shana said on the other side, a lot of goodness comes out of it. And one of the things that you get is resilience. And if you want to be a senior leader someday, it'll probably happen if that's what you want. But along the way, you will likely have your fair number of ups and downs along the way, because that's how you get senior leaders. Senior leaders are the ones that persevere through thick and thin and get there. And, one thing that sometimes maybe is hard to imagine is that, we all see these, high visibility leaders out there that seem to have perfect lives on the outside. But what you don't know is what's happening on the personal side as well. And, whether that's public or not, that is a big part of a leader's life. Their ability to persevere through the personal challenges. There's, a friend of mine, she's now the Senate of Arms, the Sergeant at Arms for the Senate. She had been through some crazy stuff during her career, and now she's in this high visibility position, and you wouldn't know it because she perseveres. She gets to work every day. She does a great job, and she gets after it. My wife and I, when our son was in college, he came down with a very severe mental illness. And so, he ended up with schizophrenia. Well, that's like the death of a child when that happens to you. And, we were able to get through that as a family, but not without a lot of, a lot of drama and trauma along the way, right? And we had to adapt to a new normal. It didn't stop, us from moving forward as a family or me moving forward in my career. But, there will be a lot of hidden things along the way that you won't see on the outside that, folks are going through, but you will be tested if you take that path, and you will be okay, right? You just need to hear that sometimes, some of you today may be going through some tough times today, job changes or whatever it is. You will be okay. Some wise, guidance to me was, hey, if you wake up, when no one got killed that day, it wasn't a bad day. It was okay. We'll be okay, and although maybe that might be an extreme example, it really, there's a lot of truth to that. Back to what Shana said, blessed to be doing what you're doing. I asked for this life, and I have this life. And so, the challenge, I think, is sometimes enjoying the journey along the way and embracing it. In the Army, we say, embrace the suck, right? If you're out there and it's raining and it's miserable, it's really just a mindset. If you say, okay, this is what I get paid to do. I get paid to be in the Army and roll around in the mud. I should enjoy it. It's just a matter of perspective sometimes. But those challenges in life will be there for you. And many of you have gone through many already, I know. So I'm speaking to the choir to some degree, but I know it's sometimes good to hear about that and hear the reinforcing, messages from, those on the panel today. But yes, you will be okay. Yes, there'll be hard times ahead. Absolutely. But you will be okay. So that's my message. Back to you, Jonathan.
Thanks. And I think that's a great one to end on. We've still got the 17 attendees here. And I think on any given day, there's like a 5% chance that I need to hear it will be okay. So I'm sure that really helps some of our attendees. Well, thank you so much to our panelists. We got a little bit of time left, but I don't know that we have time for another question. We're scheduled to end at 7 here. But yeah, just one last thank you to all our panelists. As a reminder, Angie Lienert is the president and CEO of Intelligenesis, LLC. Shana Cosgrove is the CEO of Nyla. Robert Harrison is the director of business development at Innovex. And Major General Garrett Yee is the assistant to the director of DISA. And sunglass enthusiast, apparently.
I brought these out for Angie.
I was waiting for it. I knew you were going to come up with something. You never disappoint. You never disappoint.
Great. Well, yeah, I think we're going to close a little bit early.
Doesn't know how to end with that.
And thank you to all our attendees who stopped in. I hope you all had some good takeaways from this session.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thanks
very
for the
welcome.
panel. And yeah, this was probably one of the best panels I've seen since I started doing these. So thank you all for your participation. And thank you, John. Yeah, made me laugh, made me cry, made me do some soul searching. So yeah, I thought this was really good. Thanks, everybody. All right, take care.
Thank you very much.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good evening, everyone.